Hi everyone, I am here again to make videos on biosynthesis of starch and sucrose. You know that sucrose and starch both are synthesized in the plants. Sucrose is a disaccharide made up of fructose and glucose, and starch is a polymer of glucose, polysaccharide made up of glucose with alpha 1,4 as well as alpha 1,6 glycosidic linkages. So first we'll discuss the synthesis of starch, then we'll move on to synthesis of sucrose. Starch generally synthesized in chloroplast. The chloroplasts are present in the leaves. So leaves are photosynthetic tissues. During daytime leaves utilizing one of the products of Calvin cycle synthesize starch. That starch generally is called transitory starch. Because why it is transitory? Because that can be utilized to perform other metabolic functions during night time. Whenever plants require energy, this transitory starch can be utilized to perform other metabolic pathways. In non-photosynthetic tissues such as seed, stem and tubers, in these starch, whatever synthesized in chloroplast, will be stored for long duration. That stored starch can be mobilized during seed germination as well as sprouting. Okay? As I mentioned, starch synthesis occurs in chloroplast generally during the daytime. How this starch is synthesized in chloroplast? Let me brief the pathway how starch is synthesized from the precursors. Then we will move on to some of the important biochemical reactions. This structure, what I am showing you, it's a chloroplast. In the chloroplast, the products that are generated, one of the products that are generated during Calvin cycle, that is 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde. 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde can be exported to cytosol, or it can be retained in the chloroplast to either synthesize sucrose or to synthesize starch. You know that 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde can also be converted to dihydroxyacetone phosphate. This we studied in glycolytic pathway, right? These two triose phosphates combine by the action of aldolase enzyme that gives fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. Again, this reaction mechanism, everything is similar as in glycolytic pathway. Further, fructose 1,6 bisphosphate is converted to fructose 6-phosphate, right? Converted to fructose 6-phosphate by the action of fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase. Wherever phosphatase is there, that requires water molecule that hydrolyzes one of the phosphate groups present on the fructose 1,6 bisphosphate, and it's released in the form of inorganic phosphate. This fructose 6-phosphate formed by the action of fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase further isomerized to glucose 6-phosphate. Again, we discussed this reaction also in glycolytic pathway, how glucose 6-phosphate is converted to fructose 6-phosphate and fructose 6-phosphate is converted to glucose 6-phosphate by the action of phosphoglucose isomerase. There is an isomerization reaction. Then glucose 6-phosphate by the action of mutase. Glucose 6-phosphate by the action of mutase is converted to glucose 1-phosphate. Here, position of phosphate group is changed. Again, mutase reaction mechanism we discussed. You just take an example of conversion of 3-phosphoglycerate to 2-phosphoglycerate. The position of phosphate group from third carbon atom to second carbon atom by the action of mutase. Same reaction mechanism occurs here. Mutase is present generally in the form of phosphoenzyme because the serine residue present on that mutase, that serine residue is phosphorylated. This phosphoenzyme donates its phosphate group to glucose 1-phosphate that makes glucose 1,6-bisphosphate. In the case of 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde to 2-phosphoglyceraldehyde, there will be formation of 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate. Here, by the action of mutase, glucose 1-phosphate, glucose 6-phosphate is converted to glucose 1-phosphate with an intermediate of glucose 1,6-bisphosphate. That is the mechanism of mutase. Then, this mutase, dephosphorylated mutase, attacks phosphate group at 6th position and becomes phosphoenzyme. Ultimately, glucose 1-phosphate is released from the enzyme. In the next step, this glucose 1-phosphate, again, it is not readily react with growing amylose chain or starch primer chain. That's why this glucose 1-phosphate has to be activated. It is activated by the action of ADP glucose 1-phosphate pyrophosphorylase that requires ATP. Here, using ADP glucose 1-phosphate pyrophosphorylase that releases pyrophosphate and forms ADP glucose. This reaction I'll explain later. Here, this pyrophosphorylase forms ADP glucose. Now, ADP glucose is highly reactive and it can add glucose moiety to growing amylose chain. Right? Once ADP glucose is formed, as I mentioned, this activated glucose molecule can be added to the growing amylose chain by the action of enzyme starch synthase. Starch synthase is an enzyme. It requires some kind of primer. It cannot add or it cannot synthesize starch from glucose units. That requires some assistance or some kind of primer. So generally in plants there is lack of information on this primer. Some report they say amylogenin that has glucosyl transferase activity that can transfer or add some glucose residues on itself and then forms amylogenin and some oligosaccharide complex. That amylogenin along with oligosaccharide that acts as primer. Once that primer is ready, ADP glucose is ready. Starch synthase can add this glucose moiety to the growing amylose or primer and links with alpha 1,4 linkage. Now here that pyrophosphate is formed, is unstable and hydrolyzed by the action of pyrophosphatase to form inorganic phosphate. Right? This inorganic phosphate further utilized in Calvin cycle to form triose phosphates or other phosphates. Let's see how the glucose 1-phosphate is converted to ADP glucose. See this reaction here. First reaction. So this is nothing but glucose 1-phosphate. It's activated to ADP glucose because glucose 1-phosphate is not active, is not reactive. So it has to be converted to ADP glucose. How it is converted to ADP glucose? In the presence of ATP and with the action of this enzyme. Here, glucose 1-phosphate attacks alpha phosphate group of ATP. Glucose 1-phosphate. The phosphate group on glucose 1-phosphate attacks alpha phosphate group of ATP, and that forms ADP glucose, and pyrophosphate is released. That pyrophosphate can be hydrolyzed by the action of pyrophosphatase. This ADP glucose now reactive, highly reactive, right? Highly reactive, and that can donate the glucose moiety to the primer. Primer, what is primer here? Is nothing but the complex of maltooligosaccharides with amylogenin. How that complex is formed? By the action of the glucosyl or glycosyl transferase. By the action of glycosyl transferase, this amylogenin, that is glycosyl transferase, that makes maltooligosaccharides. Along with amylogenin and maltooligosaccharides that act as primer. So here, this primer, right? That primer can accept glucose moiety from ADP glucose. Here, ADP glucose adds glucose moiety to this primer by the action of starch synthase. Then this cycle continues. ADP glucose adds one glucose at a time, and then that makes linear chain of polysaccharide, that is nothing but amylose. Amylose is a linear polysaccharide made up of glucose units with alpha 1,4 linkage. This one is alpha 1,4 linkage, glycosidic linkage, and this amylose constitutes almost 30% of total starch. This amylose generally approximately 1000 residues. 1000 residues, and also, as I mentioned, linear, it's unbranched. Another form of starch is there, that is amylopectin, that comprises 70% of the total starch. So what is this amylopectin? How it is synthesized? Once the amylose chains are synthesized, amylose chains are synthesized, another enzyme, starch branching enzyme, SBE, starch branching enzyme, cuts the alpha 1,4 linkage of amylose chain and makes alpha 1,6 linkage like this. Right? Alpha 1,6 linkage. So this action is mediated by, as I mentioned, starch branching enzyme. And also I mentioned that it constitutes 70%. This branching, whatever occurs by the action of starch branching enzyme, approximately occurs every 20 to 25 units of glucose. Amylose that comprises 30% is linear, right? There is no branching. Approximately 1000 residues each amylose chain. On the other hand, amylopectin, which is a branched polysaccharide, comprises 70%, and branching occurs every 20 to 25 glucose units, and that action is mediated by starch branching enzyme. Here I mentioned that amylose is a linear polysaccharide. Generally, although we consider this as a linear polysaccharide, it forms helical structure. It forms coil structure or helical structure. Every 6 glucose residues form helical structure of coil structure of amylose. This helical structure responsible for reacting with iodine that gives blue violet color. This helical structure, although we consider amylose is a linear polysaccharide, right? But 6 glucose residues forms, each 6 glucose residues form a coil structure. In that structure, iodine can fit in there, that gives characteristic blue violet color when iodine reacts with amylose. This helical structure or coil structure is disrupted. Coil structure of amylose is disrupted when there is a branching occurs. When branching occurs, this coil or helical structure is disrupted, and that because of this disruption of helical structure, iodine does not give blue violet color, but still it interacts and it gives brown color. Right? That means amylose generally we consider is a branching, unbranched polysaccharide, linear, but that makes coil structure. Right? On the other hand, amylopectin is a branched polysaccharide that branching occurs 20 to 25 residues. So I'll stop here, and then in my next video I am going to talk about sucrose biosynthesis. Thank you.